Testing. 1, 2, 3. Hello, everybody. It is Monday. This is your crypto breakfast for the week, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming. I'm joined, this is your Captain Marty Party speaking, with co-captain CTO Austin and the other captain Mando and myself. I'm just sitting at the back of the bus having some tea. Anyway, how are you guys doing today?
Doing great, man.
Good. This is going to be. We got a lot to cover. I forgot to upload the deck. It's been strange, but I will pull up an agenda in a second. But we'll be talking about a whole bunch of different things, looking at a whole bunch of charts, looking at the most important thing I think we want to really cover today is to talk about the catalysts for Q4. You know, Q4 typically kicks off with a thing called Uptober, which is going to be very exciting. We'll break down some of those catalysts, and we'll look at all things macro regulation, some weird stuff happening to crypto outside of crypto per se, more in the TradFi sense as well. And what else is going on? Let me see. I downloaded the deck, but I can't find the deck. Hold on a second.
I want to hear about token and about breakpoint.
Yeah, I will cover that too as well. I'm just having struggles uploading everything, but let's talk about the first story I have to talk about though is about a chart. So there it is. Got it. Hold on a second. They're waiting for this puppy to upload so everybody can know exactly where the story is going today. Breakpoint itself was pretty stunning. We'll get back to that a little later when we get through the show. I was able to extract about 70 massive launches, releases, breakthroughs, new validators, new clients, etc., and so much going on. But the agenda today will look something like this, and we may not necessarily stay on these rails, and we'll always integrate breaking news as it happens. First of all, we'll look at some Bitcoin Wyckoff reaccumulation, and then CTO, if you have any cool Bitcoin charts that shows you exactly what's going on right now. It's been so weird. I've been watching it very carefully over the last 3 days. Every time it looks like it's breaking out, it retraces. Breakout, retraces. Breakout, retraces. We had a big spike this morning. It shot up literally like $1,000 in minutes and then completely retraced again. We'll look at global liquidity, Bitcoin trends, BlackRock's Bitcoin strategy. They got some changes going on. FTX distro, 16 billion. And that's mostly cash and mostly from people who held things like Solana. Will it come back to Solana? That's the big question I want to get answered from you all. Institutional adoption of Bitcoin, what's going on beyond crypto into some traditional TradFi stuff, growing usage, the dangers of wrapped things as well. There's also some sketch, shady stuff going on with Coinbase and their CBBTC, Solana ecosystem innovations, Sui Blockchain Developments, how dead chains roll to Gen 3 chains. And Marty, we're going to put you on the spot for that too. Base going down, a layer 2 on Ethereum. Very quiet though, don't tell anybody. Regulatory developments and some macro if we can get to it. So let's kick it off with this first. This is, Marty, I'm going to give this to you first. Bitcoin Wyckoff reaccumulation. What's going on here?
Yeah, I don't know if people are familiar with Wyckoff. Basically, it was invented by this guy, Wyckoff, from a Wall Street trader, actually using, I believe, Chinese rice dealer and market theory. But basically, it's a distribution pattern used by market makers to, maximize their accumulation, to maximize their asset holdings whilst minimizing asset holdings of others, which they would call less informed traders. So to mislead less informed traders. That's the purpose of the Wyckoff. And you can see it's extremely theoretical. Down there on the right-hand side, I always put the theoretical chart. You can see the process. It doesn't obviously match it exactly, but the key points are critical. And you can see in this reaccumulation in between the first markup, it's playing out to perfection. So, I mean, I've been following this now since May, and you can see it's just absolutely perfect. So if the Wyckoff could be, go ahead.
The green zone is the reaccumulation zone, correct?
Correct. The green zone is the area where you should buy. Always make your entries and reaccumulate with the whales. If you follow the Wyckoff, you're trading like smart money. You're trading like a large holder, which is what you want to do in investing. You want to trade like like a hedge fund, like a whale. You don't want to trade like a retail investor. The whole purpose of this is to shake people out. And you can see it's a series of lower lows, getting more and more violent always until the spring, which is, the low, and then a slow move up, accelerating to the final consolidation. And you can see what's really interesting this year is if it goes to plan, that final consolidation will climax at the US election in that time frame.
And that's not very many days away. That's very
No,
close.
they're going to use it to perfection. So what I'm looking for is this a little pullback is necessary here. And you can see they're trying everything they can to pull us back a little bit. Right now it's happening. They're trying. You can see they're trying. But then we're going to see the impulse that we're looking for. If we get this impulse back into the blue zone, the Wyckoff once again has been flawless. If we continue down to the green zone, it's a reaccumulation. I suggest everyone to buy again. Followed, and then we'll see what plays out after that. But it's just a really interesting distribution pattern that I've been following for years, and it's just a really nice guide. It's like a high-level roadmap. And
so now we know where so now we know where the term bag holder comes from. It's from people that had big bags of rice. CTO, what do you see? Do you see us spiking out here and breaking out of this blue zone? Because I think people have been waiting for this breakout beyond the all-time high for quite some time. What do you see?
Absolutely. I agree 100% with Marty. The Wyckoff is a great model. So this gentleman described 100 years ago how the big players are screwing over the small players. This is how they do it. So it's a great model and a great learning to study. And the key is to kind of notice when it starts turning around. And we did call it here on this show when we said that there is a higher low in the sequence of lower lows. Suddenly we got a higher low a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about it here, and so far it has played out. So that is a trend change in the sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lower lows. Suddenly we got a higher low. So that is great, and I think that we have actually cleared a key resistance already here at about 61K, and now we're facing a little bit resistance at this level. If this clears as well, we also get a double bottom confirmed when we clear this one. If we clear this one, which I think will happen, and then there's not much left. So I think this looks fantastic. We've talked about it here a couple of weeks, and so far it's playing out. So it's been like a tricky half year, especially with emotions of kind of like nothing is happening, it's boring, it's slowly bleeding down with this seemingly endless series of lower lows and lower highs. But that has changed now. So everyone who fell asleep during this time to wake up. If you didn't wake up 2 weeks ago when we talked about it first time, now is definitely the time. And we also see life back in many of the altcoins that have just been like an endless drop for half a year almost. Many of those are forming bottom patterns now. So it's really an exciting time in the market. I'm super excited here. I don't sound so excited. Someone complained last time I don't sound excited, but I'm a Swede. This is how we come. So I am excited if that's not clear. So
okay. So we just assume everybody from here on in, CTO is always excited. And Mando, you were very interested in Bitcoin last week too. Tell us.
Yeah, I think I just repeat what CTO said. I think hopefully we hit that higher low before. When was it? A week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and now we're just going to see if we can hit a higher high. And if we can, and I think that's around 65K, right? Like if we break above 65K, that would be a higher high kind of confirmed. So I imagine we're going to see volatility around there. We've kind of gone just below it twice already over the weekend, and I feel like we'll have another run. I do think we'll break above to form a higher high there, and then I think, I've been saying I think we're going to rally just maybe 2-3 weeks before the election. I would say like mid to early October would be the time I think we start really starting to rally, and it's kind of being set up for then. I think we'll probably once we get to kind of all-time highs, we'll chop around there for a little bit. But I think that's where the next period of chop will really happen, and I think that'll happen around the election.
Yeah. And that 64K level, 64 and change, has been a pain in the butt for 3 months now. We've pierced it a couple of times, and every time it retraces back. So there's got to be some type of bigger players keeping a lid on things. But once we break through that 64, 65K, I do believe the move will be pretty rapid. And Marty, you said something very interesting, that this is going to happen. This yellow spike will happen by the election. And we are, what, 40 days away, approximately?
Yeah, I think we're on 42 days. Let's check.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, that's a market maker's dream. This is exactly the kind of thing they want. So we all knew it. I mean, regarding the Kamala Harris statement, I know we're going to talk about that later. But I think she has 42 days to make a statement. She uttered some words in Wall Street, but we don't really have a clear statement on crypto from her. Trump, we know, is all in. So I think it's going to be interesting.
It would be nice to have her in front of some reporters, maybe do an interview or 2 or 10. I think that would be give people an idea of what she thinks about crypto and the economy and everything else. But let's talk about something bigger that floats all boats. This is global liquidity against Bitcoin. And I know you watch this a lot. There's a couple of stunning things about this particular chart here that I want to point out. One is how global liquidity has changed. We are now at exactly the way I calculate, I use the Bitcoin strategy site, $99.7 trillion of global liquidity. At the beginning of the year, it was 10 trillion lighter, and it has gone up real fast. And that's kind of stunning. And just over the past 10 or 11 weeks, it's gone up 5%, which, people think, 5% is not a big move. We talk about all the monies in the world, to go up by that amount in less than 3 months, it's a staggering move. The question is, Bitcoin price is lagging. And I'll kick this out to you guys. The typical lag that I see between global liquidity rising and then Bitcoin price following, sometimes is 3 months or so, sometimes a little longer. How do you guys see? I'll give this to Mando first, if you track this, and the lag between the tide going up and then the price of Bitcoin, etc., rising.
Yeah, so just general global liquidity has kind of done nothing look at that chart. It's done nothing really for 2 years. It's kind of just been going sideways. You've seen some quantitative tightening from the Fed, but then China's been easing. A few other places around the world have been easing. Now I think the only way that number is going is higher again. Now the lag, we kind of know. We know what the lag's been caused by, which has been just the pockets of supply coming. I've said it for a few times. I just think this has been a really good opportunity, just because of that exact thing. You've had these pockets of supply, even though the fundamentals are pushing us higher. You've got gold breaking out to a new all-time high. Interestingly, over the last 3 weeks, you've also seen the dollar. The dollar started to really go down a lot. This is kind of multi-month, sometimes even multi-year lows for the dollar against various different currencies, the yen, euro, sterling. And that's also what is causing this rally. So we've had a rally in gold, we had a rally in US stocks, and now you've had a rally in Bitcoin. So weaker dollar, more easing coming. I think it's all a very, very positive sign for Bitcoin. And you've had the opportunity to accumulate in this period of technical selling. And now we're probably going to go into a period of technical buying if FTX is going to give back 16 billion in the last few months of the year.
Yeah, good stuff. Marty, your view on global money.
Yeah, I mean, we always follow. I mean, Raoul Powell, I think, said, what was it, 10-week lag in his latest brilliant diagram, which really shows the relationship. I mean, we follow global liquidity. I always think crypto is like a liquidity sponge. We've got so many tailwinds at this point. I think not only are we going to chase global liquidity, but we're going to do it in a rate we've never seen before. The allocation to crypto is going to be larger than it was last time around. So we should expect those gains. But always when you have tailwinds, you've got to expect these violent pullbacks and suppression. And that's what we've been seeing. So I think we're going to, as the dollar falls, and we know the dollar is clinging to that 100 right now, since for a week now. It's at 100.8. It got as low as 100.2. If it loses that 100, I think that's going to be quite an event. At the same time, we've got the yen coming up a little bit. That's a little worrisome. But I think Bitcoin will follow global liquidity and gold. It follows gold and global liquidity with almost equal lag. And this is I like what Manda says. You got to look at this as the perfect opportunity. This lag.
Yeah, there were people were concerned last week that the Japanese central bank was going in the wrong direction to the rest of the global central banks, and that could bring about kind of a mini kerfuffle like August 5th of this year. But I didn't see that as much. I mean, the fact that they didn't cut 25 basis points or something, or whatever tiny amount that they do, it really doesn't have a big play. But I think they're only hurting themselves, and the Japanese central bank has been doing a bad job for the last 30 years anyway. Any thoughts on that issue? Does that keep you awake at night?
I think they got a talking to by Janet Yellen and the Secretary of the Treasury. I think we saw 2 weeks ago, right? They kept their rates at the same level. They didn't increase rates, which we thought they would. So I think they're stepping in line. And we saw that they enabled, credit lines to Japanese companies. I showed you that, guys, in a post recently, as a kind of a buyer of last resort instead of raising rates. So I think Japan is standing in line, and I think there's a strategic play at hand. All economies, we all know when one economy, typically China, starts to ease, everyone has to follow suit. So all eyes on China and their level of easing, and then India has started to step up, and we just got to wait for Janet Yellen to make an announcement. We all know she's already said they want 78 trillion for climate change. She said that in Brazil Live. So she kind of put the number out there. I think that's probably what's going to happen. There's going to be a 70 to 100 trillion dollar print globally.
Yeah, I saw a lot of talk of that craziness too. Basically light things up, and it's not a good thing, everybody. I know we talk about money printer, go burr, and it'll pump our bags, but at the same time you get debased on the back end. So remember that, everybody. Let's talk this one.
I can show 3 charts to what Mando said, because I think it was so great. So here is the US dollar index chart, the DXY chart, and as you see here, it got back to a level which we haven't been since last year. But what Mando said here, imagine if this breaks down. If so far the support has always held here, many times, and now it's holding again. But imagine if that breaks down. That's going to be a massive event. So, and the yields chart did break down, that we talked about a lot last time. And the stocks like the S&P 500, it got the breakout. See if I can get this one to scale. So it really hesitated here several times, but it actually broke out. So, of course, this is massively bullish, not only for stocks, but for all speculative assets. And gold, like the old gold, also just continued further up. So, of course, these are enormously bullish events for everything, for all the assets, including Bitcoin. So I think it's worth seeing what's happening on other markets, even if you're not interested in trading them.
Definitely. Let's talk. Thank you for that, CTO. Let's talk about the second big catalyst. This is BlackRock. They were rattling some sabers last week. They're preparing for what they call a $35 trillion crisis linked to the Federal Reserve's dollar policies. And they really signaled, I guess, to themselves and to their customers, everybody needs to rely more on Bitcoin because the world is a poop show. And their strategic shift towards Bitcoin is viewed as a kind of a hedge against inflation, currency devaluation, crazy governments, etc. And then Forbes came out and said this could catalyze a massive move for Bitcoin. And then there's other stuff that they're doing too, all happening in unison. You've got the Bitcoin options. I said that they probably get options approved back in April. I was wrong. It didn't happen until last week. But that will help bring a lot more institutional money into Bitcoin. You've got Mellon custody coming too. A lot of interesting BlackRock, TradFi things happening behind the scenes. A lot of alarming concerns that you don't normally hear from these players. Anybody want to tackle this one? This is a meaty one, and this has huge significance for Bitcoin in the space.
I mean, I think that the last week was those two announcements from BlackRock and BNY Mellon, both SEC announcements illustrating exemptions to these, SAB 121 in one case, and expediting the options approval, which wasn't supposed to happen until December, as far as I knew. Those two things indicate that there is some form of emergency. And this article on Forbes is just mind-blowing. I would love to see that in a presidential debate question. Can you talk on this article? What does this mean?
So Larry Fink says your dollar is going to implode. Bitcoin's the answer. What do you think about that? I wonder how people would answer. Because the other one of the candidates is saying similar types of things, but I think who knows who's right.
Yeah, I think those two news events are maybe the biggest events for me in crypto history. The BNY Mellon one we'll talk about later, but I mean, if people aren't aware, BNY Mellon is pretty much a proxy for the Central Reserve in the US. It's the custodian of $46 trillion of assets. Basically, every stock certificate in this S&P 500 is held by BNY Mellon. The decision for them to be allowed to hold in-kind crypto, not just Bitcoin. I read the entire approval. They can hold any crypto in kind. Shows to me, and this is an SEC approval, shows to me that there is a strategic change happening under the covers. And I also see Coinbase custody as a single point of failure. And I think they're addressing that too, also with the filing today by BlackRock. They're looking for an alternative to Coinbase, and it looks like they've picked the number one asset custodian, BNY Mellon, which is bullish. I mean, obviously, the ethos of decentralization is a question again, but I would prefer personally BNY Mellon to take some of the custodianship away from Coinbase, which right now is just making my knees shake.
It's always been a concern for me. I think 7 of the 9 ETFs. The only one that doesn't have custody with Coinbase is Fidelity, if I'm not mistaken. Mando, what do you think about all this? I think we lost CTO's screen for now, but I hope he's still there.
Yeah, as Marcy said, this was a Forbes article. It's definitely worth reading. I think it came out on Friday or Thursday. It's kind of shocking to me how much Larry Fink is on financial TV as well, talking about BlackRock, talking about Bitcoin. He was on there again over the weekend.
Yep.
I think roughly 30% of all BlackRock's ETF inflows this year have come from this product. They're obviously making a ton of fees from it. And this is just a really good narrative. One thing that Bitcoin has found very, very comfortably in TradFi is a clear narrative to pitch to investors, which ETH hasn't really done from its ETF, and a lot of people complained about it. But Bitcoin has this very easy to understand narrative, which they can just keep on pushing and pushing and pushing. And this is a really good time to do that. We're talking about the Fed having this, $35 trillion debt crisis that they're paying over $1 trillion a year already just in interest. We spoke about Japan before. Japan's debt to GDP is close to 300%. Their ability to raise interest rates, they can raise it by a quarter of a basis point, but they're completely screwed if they start to try and raise it above 1%. There's a debt crisis in pretty much every major economy around the world at the moment. China, US, a lot of Europe, and Bitcoin just becomes an easy sell on the back of that. So I think we'll continue to see this. BlackRock will continue to push it, and I think it's really, really going to be a strong narrative to have the largest money manager in the world pushing Bitcoin pretty much every single week via some sort of article or on financial cable news.
And it's so funny you say that. I don't have TV, but I keep seeing them pop up on YouTube, and I'm like, are they repeating the same videos? He's got a different tie on.
Literally, there every week. I've never he doesn't really talk that much. I haven't really seen Larry Fink talk that much before this. And I used to trade at TradFi Bank, and he was known, but he's on there every week talking about Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. The next big catalyst, CTO. I don't know if you've been tracking this one. I know everybody's kind of interested. This is FTX distribution, and Marty, you're all over this too. $16 billion is coming. FTX had actually invested in an AI company that literally made this beyond whole. The creditors are getting their money back plus 9% interest. From what I know, 16 billion will be coming out in October, they say. Not sure. It is cash. Many of these investors had things like Bitcoin and Solana on the exchange. Now they're getting cash back. The question I have for you all, CTO, you first. What will they do with that money?
Exactly. One of the advice that I got earlier that's been so useful to me, that I know I repeated it here many times, but I still think it's useful, is to think, what are the buyers and the sellers doing, and why are they doing it? If you can figure that out, you have a great clue to where the price will go. So if it is confirmed that they will get cash, those people cannot be sellers, right? If they get in cash, they have to be buyers or do nothing. And of course, a good share of those are going to be buyers, and they're probably going to buy what they felt that they missed the train of, right? They basically felt that they lost the soul that they had, and because many of those on FTX had Solana. FTX was kind of the Solana locomotive partly at that time. And so a lot of those holders will have had Solana. Now they've sat there super stressed that they're missing the train. They're seeing everything that's happening, like your excellent videos from Breakpoint, James. And they're stressed. They're feeling that they're missing the train. And I think they're going to panic buy, like immediately when they get this. And of course, Bitcoin as well. But do you guys know, is it confirmed that they're getting cash? Because of course, if they are getting some share of crypto instead, they might be sellers instead. They might panic sell because they feel that, oh, I almost lost it. I should, secure the money now.
No, this is what we saw for the first. Yeah, this is what we saw for the first 9 months of the year. They've sold all of their holdings, right? As James said, they had this crazy trade in Anthropic, which is the Claude LLM, which people use them like randomly. FTX had a stake in that, and they did really well off that. But then they've been selling all their locked Solana, and they sold all their balance sheet coins. A bunch of them were like SAM coins. They called them like basically zeros, but they sold out of all of those. They sold out of all their Bitcoin. This is all cash they're getting back. The majority of the sales were done at pretty low prices, though, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, they sold at auction through Figure Markets to Pantera. Their Solana went to Pantera and Gemini. No, it went to
Galaxy.
To Novogratz, correct, which is now, top 3 Solana validator. Both of those. So that's taken care of. It's all in cash. They raised cash. The nice, interesting thing is non-governmental creditors are expected to receive 100% of their claims plus interest. And any creditor with over 50,000 gets around 118% of their claim due to interest. So they're actually paying interest as well. So it's quite a favorable redistribution in cash. So obviously the speculation is how much of the 16 billion will actually get put back into crypto. But even if it's half, guys, that's a large inflow into crypto. And we're going to probably see it in the first weeks of October, as early as 2 weeks' time, potentially. Yep. I'll be on the lookout for any news. I have sources, and I'll let you know. Maybe next week's show we'll have more detail.
Secret sources. And there's, again, a ton of other stuff happening. We touched on some of it, like the Melon news. We have BlackRock's Bitcoin adoption news we covered on. There's a lot of institutions like Franklin Templeton getting into the game. You got Citibank. They want to get into the crypto game as well. I mean, I see nothing but an endless list of crazy TradFi, big money runner catalysts all coming into the space. And then we have a whole bunch of other Bitcoin stuff too. We got Louisiana state adoption. A presidential candidate made a Bitcoin payment, which was in all the news. You got Zeus, their testnet launch is happening. That could be, I know, Marty, you're looking at this one too. It's very intriguing for me to have a true layer 2 that is fast, cheap, scalable with the liquidity of Bitcoin running and operational. I've kept my eye on this because that would be a game changer if they can get this thing to run. I know I had you reach out to your buddy the other day on this one. Any update on Zeus?
Yeah, I'm actually talking to Justin. We're having a call on Friday, and I'll get all the juicy. He's going to lay out all the news. But I think people aren't really aware of why this is a critical step for the industry. And that is because Zeus is taking on the incredibly complex job of creating a one-to-one permissionless peg, as opposed to a bridge. We're going to talk about it later, but there's inherent risk, counterparty risk in bridging. We saw that with Wrap Bitcoin. We see that with Coinbase Bitcoin. At the end of the day, these are just multi-sig wallets held by humans that back these derivatives, right, on these other networks. And we just saw that Wrap Bitcoin announces out of the blue that Justin Sun is going to be involved in a redistribution of the custody from the US to Hong Kong. I mean, if I had 100 Bitcoin in Wrap Bitcoin, that's not what I want to hear. So there's inherent risk with wrapping. I think people need to really come to terms. Wrapping and bridging of crypto is a TradFi thing. The fact that you can create a derivative on a custodian thing. Zeus is taking another approach, which is to make a permissionless system. In other words, a smart contract-based layer that runs on Solana that automates that peg. So there's no human involvement and there's no risk of counterparty, and allows people like us to provide liquidity ourselves. It's not custodied in some big wallet somewhere by some third party. So it's an extremely important piece of the industry, of the network growing. And I think people don't understand. It's going to start with Bitcoin, but they're already planning to do it for all proof of work. Doge, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and then even talking about doing it for Ethereum. So this is like a breakthrough. When this works, this changes everything. And so that's why I'm such a fan of it. I love technology. And this is like the state of the art in Web3 technology right now.
And we stepped on something coincidentally there, the wrapped. And if anybody knows me in this channel, I always say pure form always. It's a very crude way of saying don't touch stuff that's wrapped. Imagine having a perfect gold bar and then swapping it for a chocolate bar that's wrapped in gold or something. I think of it like that. This came out, I don't know if CTO or Mando, you saw this one, from Coinbase Bitcoin, which CBBTC, which is their version of wrapped. They came out and changed a little bit of language here, which is very alarming. I know, Marty, you tweeted this as well. But basically, if anything does happen, sorry, you might not get anything back. This makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And as usual, people either don't understand it or they're not alarmed. Mando, CTO, any ideas on this one?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Just like Marty said, like the wrapping is adding a huge risk. That suddenly it's just gone. Sorry, we lost it. And there was a bug in the code, so it's gone. Everyone's Bitcoin is lost. Or we accidentally, minted the unlimited number of these wrap tokens. So, and then people sold them and they were, minted back, or there's a bug in the bridge or something like that. And I mean, there's happened a lot of these. This is not like a theoretical problem. There's been a lot of these issues with bridges and similar things. So that's why I think the pioneer in this space was the Rune protocol, that tried to kind of create a native-to-native swap to solve exactly this problem. This is the problem. And I mean, they've worked it took like 5 years or something to come up with a solution. But it's worth it because this is a real problem. And I think it's a super high risk to use any of these wrapping protocols. One day it could all be gone because accidentally someone made a bug. And if it's like a smallish protocol, no one's going to roll back the main chain to fix it.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing those technical details, CTO, because when people understand how the sausage is made, they will never eat the sausage. Mando, your thoughts on this? Were you alarmed?
I mean, I'm just reading through this now. Like, I don't know, because I'd have to see the section 9.15, but it does seem as though, they're basically absolving themselves from some form of liability here. I think I look at it the other way as well, which is, wrapping is an issue, but it's also a massive opportunity. Like, this is basically what Marty's saying as well. It's like, whoever solves this and the ability to move collateral between chains, or maybe even access it natively, I think it's just one of the big opportunities left in crypto, if I'm honest. It would open up all of Bitcoin DeFi. It would allow cross-chain sort of DeFi. And I think that could be absolutely huge.
Yeah, the liquidity is key piece here. Marty, you hinted at something. They're not bridging, but does Zeus have a different method of wrapping? I heard they want to be very transparent, so you'll be able to see the one-to-one kind of backing of
Yeah, the
whatever
beauty of Zeus call their approach a layer 1.5. So they've actually created a Zeus network, which is Solana validators. They've taken the Solana validator and modified it. So it's actually forms of network validators that are doing this. So it inherently has the security of Solana behind it, you know, all of the security mechanisms of Solana. So it's an extremely different approach. I mean, let's just be clear. Let's go back to basics. Why do we want Bitcoin and Ethereum liquidity on other chains? It's because then they can, you know, move at the speed of light, take advantage of all these modern blockchain speeds. And Bitcoin people, quite frankly, have been stuck in Bitcoin and can't really use it. They can't generate yield. They want to be part of the ecosystem. So that's why we want Bitcoin and other assets on older chains, on these newer chains. But wrapping was just sort of like the fast, cheap, dirty approach, which I found to be quite frightening because it's so easily accepted and we're desensitized to the risk. But that's what leads us to all the big problems in crypto. And the whole reason crypto was invented was not to wrap. So I think that the solution is coming. And like CTO said, ThorChain, what a wonderful project. I'm a huge fan of ThorChain, open source, permissionless bridge as well. Let's call it one-to-one peg. That's the correct term. They've done it already as well. And Zeus is following in line, just with a little bit of a different approach. But these things are important, guys. The minute we can move away from wrapping, the faster we'll see Bitcoin and other liquidity moving around the ecosystem and growing the whole, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats. And yes, we need to remove this risk. So it's very important we do this. But I think taking the shortcut of wrapping was a problem. It was like a bootstrap, but it needs to end. These solutions will end it. I think if you're a big Bitcoiner, you don't want to use these permissioned wrappings. So they've been waiting for permissionless versions, and they'll be able to move Bitcoin around and participate in Solana, Sui, any DeFi they want, and make the yields and return it back in native Bitcoin without losing their beautiful entry prices.
Cool. All right, next topic. Solana ecosystem innovations. Breakpoint happened. I have pretty much I'm versed with every crypto conference for the last, 4 years. This is by far the best organized, most structured, most rapid fire event I've ever seen. And it came on the heels of Token 2049. And it kind of, I did 2 videos and about 70 different takeaways. But a couple of the big things that really stood out is, for me, if I had to pick the top 8 or 10, just as a quick summary for those that missed those videos, Solana is now becoming the enterprise blockchain. You've got players like Citibank, Societe Generale, Franklin Templeton, yada, 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 all getting into it. These are institutional players. They're not looking at Ethereum. PayPal and Stripe said, yeah, Ethereum's not going to cut it for payments. Then you have the whole world of RWA, securitization of everything, tokenization of everything. You got Wormhole working on real world tokenization Solana with players like BlackRock, PayPal, Visa, and Circle. Massive news. You've got permission tokens working on regulatory compliance to really invite more institutions into the chain. You've got Solana, the new validators coming out too. You've got Franklin Templeton want to build their own mutual fund on Solana. Firedancer Performance. Not only in the first day, they said Frankendancer was working and they could achieve crazy scale, but the next day they showed Firedancer live, not Frankendancer, Firedancer. And they showed that it could do 1 million TPS with just 100 nodes spread geographically throughout the planet. PayPal, Visa, I mentioned, I think they chose Solana over Ethereum. Jupiter came out with a ton of releases, including things like limit orders on trades, which is pretty cool for perps. so it'll be exciting for me. A little bit of gaming and Web3 expansion, a new phone, enterprise chain leader. I could go on, but I don't want to repeat myself. But it was pretty impressive what went on there. Did you guys pick up anything from the event that blew you guys away, or were you tracking?
Two things that I actually reflected from watching I watched your summaries, James, rather than everything else. I think it was great. And there was two things that stood out to me, and both of things we have talked about here for 2 years or something. One is that cost and speed actually matters. A couple of years ago, there was a lot of narrative in crypto that it doesn't matter, that fees doesn't matter because the whales are anyway so rich. So if they pay transfer $1 million, it doesn't matter if it costs 10 or 20 or $100 to do the transaction, something like that. But it's actually wrong, because looking at enterprise use cases and so on, it matters. Cost matters. It was all wrong. It was unacceptably expensive to use the Ethereum Layer 1 blockchain. It really was. That's what kind of opened this opportunity. The second thing, for many of the use cases that were actually discussed, based on your summary, James, it is the time to finality. Because if building any kind of financial application, it's not good to have a probabilistic finality, meaning that you're pretty sure that this transaction is final, but it could revert in a while. So how long should you wait? It becomes a very difficult question when you're building any kind of financial application, and having short time to finality, I think, is what enabled many of these use cases, and that's why they like it so much. It's kind of easier to understand for companies that haven't been 10 years in crypto. They want to know, okay, when is it updated? When is the database updated? They want to know the answer, and here is a clear answer. So I think that's two reasons why many of these companies really like Solana at this point.
And if you're buying a burger, you can't wait 10 minutes for finality before the person walks out of the store. We saw as an example of that, somebody paid for a burger or beers or something with Bitcoin, but they don't even know if the transaction went through. It's kind of interesting, but very good points, CTO. Mando, Marty?
I mean, to me, the highlight of Breakpoint obviously is Firedancer. I mean, Firedancer, as we all know, there's a somewhat of a race to create the first global single state machine, right? Solana is probably the one that's going to do it. What that means is, these aren't just, blockchains are no longer just, financial transactions sending money. They create a single data view in the entire world that everyone can operate against for global messaging. So it's not just financial, it's all messaging. In other words, everybody becomes connected with instant finality on their messaging, which is so different from the current state of cloud. Cloud right now is a centralized data center all around the world, hundreds of redundant relational databases syncing up, all owned by Google and Amazon. That's cloud right now, which is 80% of computer use is either internet browser-based or cloud-based. So literally, this is how we communicate in the globe. These projects are trying to create a new cloud, cloud 2.0, where it's decentralized. It's called a single global state. Now, we were there 6 months ago. We've already been talking about it. Firedancer was going to make it possible. But now what we saw in Breakpoint in the presentation is they're thinking even further. And so is Sui. Sui in their presentation at Token 2049, we also see similar verbiage. These two projects are working towards a new internet, a decentralized internet. If everyone's aware, right now, the way the internet works is a bunch of disparate centralized web servers connected to relational databases, sending HTML and things in a very dispersed way, inefficient way, exposing a lot of risk to the front end for phishing and fake pages and bad links and DNS attacks and denial of service attacks and all this stuff. These blockchains are looking to replace that. In other words, not only will you have, financial instant settlement all around the world by anyone, open to anyone, permissionless, you'll be able to have the UI, the user interface, all your data all your apps taking advantage of the single global state, which means instantaneous applications, no more security breaches. The actual user interface code will be on chain. So your browser will talk directly to the network. No web servers, no clouds, no centralized cloud providers. It's a huge proposition. And there's only two technologies that can do it. And that's FireDancer and Mr. SETI of Sui. These two new validators. Nobody's even close behind. You need 50,000 TPS minimum to reach single global state. And these are both validators that are theoretically looking at 1 million TPS. So this is like Internet 2.0, guys. And if you listen to Mr. Bowers, he's an absolute goat, the leader of the FireDancer team. He speaks on it. Go and watch that again. And you saw Mert also freaking out during the presentation. And you saw Sui as well talking about the same thing. So be very aware. Blockchain has changed. And these two projects, go ahead.
There's somebody here in the chat calling us Solana shillers. Josh Johnson, I wish I could block you, but I can't with this particular interface. But these are just facts is what we share here. We're not selling anything. We don't give a crap what you buy. I want to make that very clear. These are revolutionary technological changes. And, you know, we want to be in the best technology. We'll talk more about some of the other technologies in a minute too, but I just want to point that stuff out. Mando, one thing for me, if you look at like Visa, a very fast system, they typically run around 1700 TPS. It can peak to about 60,000 transactions per second. When we have a state machine that can do 1 million TPS, basically you can power the world.
Yeah, I think one of my criticisms of even on this show a few months ago, or maybe a few weeks ago, was like, do we even need that sort of TPS? I think what we saw is that they're actually got this huge goal, which is now to scale the internet, which has kind of been one of the taglines which has come out of Breakpoint, right? As you said, Mert was talking all about it, the idea of Web 4, the idea that we're building a decentralized fiber network, and getting very, very bullish on this. That this is the sort of thing that will require 1 million TPS. So maybe we're going to start to see maybe even non-financial style use cases of this sort of blockchain technology. Less speculation, more actually, basically more like a deep-in network. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I'm still a little bit unclear to me. Like, this is all being built by obviously the FireDancer team, which is linked to Jump Crypto. I'm still a little bit unclear about like how centralized that's all going to be versus. I know the current system, like you said, of the internet isn't particularly decentralized either, but I still haven't kind of got my head around how decentralized or how much we're reliant, therefore, on Jump, for example, as one of the major validators or one of the major clients. But I do think this could be revolutionary tech. Yeah.
Well, it's all open source as well, in fairness to them, and I think their end game from the get-go was to build a validator or a validator technology that could scale a NASDAQ. That was from the very beginning in 2020. That was the plan. But let's talk about another one too. This is Sui. This next one here, they're doing some interesting stuff too. And I have a deep dive coming up on Sui versus Sol and highlighting the differences, hopefully this week. But Sui showcased some significant enhancements at Token 2049 as well. They talked about their pilot fish or something that also has the ability to get to 1 million TPS. And they believe they can kind of eat into some market share. But the question is, a lot of it is still yet to be proven. You know, people can claim things, but get in reality, it's hard to execute this stuff. And we got two top-notch technologists here on this. So CTO is coming to you next. But for me, you know, we're getting to a stage where maybe there could be multiple chains that can do 1 million TPS. But at the end of the day, it's all about the breadth of dApps, the product market fit, and the adoption. They are critical ingredients, and all the infra that goes along with that, like wallets, etc., speed, security, decentralization. But CTO, over to you, and then we'll kick it to Marty and Mando. What do you think about these technological developments, CTO?
Yeah, so if I can show one chart. because I think the remaining 7 minutes is probably too short to go into which chain is better than that chain. I don't think we'll get through that discussion. But I want to illustrate this as response to that comment previously. It was Marty, was it last week or 2 weeks ago as well, that was talking very positively about Sui. We highlighted on this show, I said that the chart looks very good because we had this very technical breakout at the same time as the trend that had been down for the longest time turned back up. And look, we're up, what is it, like 50% since then. So I'm not a Solana shill or something. I'm interested in anything that goes up. The reason we're discussing this technology is try to understand what's the odds of different projects to succeed and have 50% or 100% or 1,000% or 100x growth opportunities. That's what we're trying to figure out here. And of course, it's not an easy thing. And sometimes you need to discuss it many times over a long period of time to get closer to that answer. I would have loved that Ethereum just continued and took over the moon because they were innovators in this space. They really came up with a lot of the smart contract technology and so on. But the world isn't fair like that. Sometimes someone else comes later with less baggage, faster innovation cycles, newer technology, and just eats that whole lunch. And that has partly happened now with Solana versus ETH on layer 1. It could happen again. And we try to monitor this and try to stay ahead of this kind of innovation. I don't rule out Ethereum. They might come back and so on, but they've definitely made some bad decisions over the past couple of years. And Solana has made a lot of good decisions, and then the price has gone accordingly. And that's what we're trying to figure out here.
Exactly. Very well stated. Marty, talk to us about Sui.
Yeah, I mean, let me just address the reply, guys. Yeah, I'm a technology guy, guys. I'm a computer scientist. I'm here for the tech. I mean, if the technology is good, the chart will go up. This is technology investing. This is about a new internet. So correct. I'm not really worried about, if the technology can't do these things, it's not personal. It just can't. When it can, I'll be all over it looking again. As I say to all the people, if you show me facts and proof that your open source development community are building things that can support 1 million TPS, I'll look at it instantly. Let me know. DM me right now. I want to know about it. The only 2 projects right now that are dealing with a horizontal scaling problem, which is where instead of making your nodes and validators faster computers to get more TPS, you can add more nodes in a horizontal way to increase TPS, is Solana and Sui. Nobody else is doing it. Nobody else even has a proposition to do it. Nobody else even has a white paper to do it. So send it to me. I'm always open to look at things like that. But these 2, like I said, these 2 projects they've got bigger things in mind. They're not looking at the current problems of blockchain. They're looking at the current problems of the internet. And exactly, there you go.
Well, and as a technologist, you understand one of the things that piqued my attention with Solana back in very early 2021 was the background of people like Toli. He understands telco, which means he understands scale, which he understands a mini version of a global state machine, which both you and the CTO understand. Any thoughts on this, Mando?
Sorry, one more thing. I mean, Solana comes from Qualcomm, guys, and Sui comes from Facebook. These are 2 teams that came from existing commercial projects trying to solve these problems and are continuing that work. The Qualcomm it provides most of the mobile infrastructure you use on your phone right now. These guys know mobile networks, which, I don't know about you guys, but the invention of the mobile phone changed the internet, right? Unbelievably fast global connections. If we wait 1 second on our cell phone, we complain to the support department. We require fast communication on cell phones. And that's Qualcomm. They know how to do that.
And support billions of users. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, and support millions of users.
Billions.
Go.
No,
Absolutely. And if I can just add one thing to that, of course, there are layer 2s that will have similar roadmaps, but it's also like the ability to do a certain number of TPS on paper is one thing. Level 2 is to actually be able to do it in reality with real use. But level 3, which is really the challenge, that is to find enough users who actually want to do that. That is the most difficult problem to solve, because there's a lot of projects actually that say that we can do, a million TPS, no problem. Okay, but they have like 25 users and they do like one transaction every 2 minutes. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that is really the hardest problem to solve, to have people who actually want that transaction speed. And that is really the ecosystem development and the hardest part. But I mean, there are layer 2s that can aspire to do this as well. But then there are other problems that we talked about layer 2s previously on the show.
So, Mando, we're finance guys. How do you see all this shaking out?
Well, I'm more of a trader, if I'm honest. Like what I have thought about as a Sui was, I think we even spoke about it on the show, like it was probably the best risk reward, right? When it was trading at 7 or 8 billion, there was a good chance for it to do a 2x. I do think that there isn't, although the TVL has now got up to 900 million, I think it is on Sui, right? A lot of that is the Sui itself. There isn't a ton of apps currently built on Sui, and there isn't a ton of like ecosystem coins. It's still now it's at 16 billion. I think it becomes a bit more of a show me story. Like the next one there, really, you'd be going after like Ton, which just has millions of users and tons of people using it every single day. I think Sui now has to get a lot of users onto that chain. I think USDC going on there is probably the first start to seeing like that DeFi ecosystem being built out. I thought it was a really good trade. I think we all flagged it at the right time, and it's done a 3x since then. Now I don't know. I'm definitely more wary on that one now. Solana, I think, showed why it's still gets everyone so excited, right? Like these conferences are like the Apple conferences. They do incredible announcements every single time, and they make you feel really bullish about blockchain technology in general. That being said, it's been interesting to know, like over the last few weeks, there's been a bit of an altcoin rally. Like a lot of different sectors have done well across AI, meme coins, alt L1s. Solana's kind of done okay, but it's been a little bit sideways. I'm definitely paying attention to that. So I'm just wary, and I'm just kind of paying attention to it. I do think we're going to see here. It does feel as though we could have a little bit of a mini altcoin season. Like, and I'm just cognizant that right now it looks like Solana isn't keeping pace with some of those other altcoins, and I think part of that is even what we said back at the start of the show. Like FTX, you get 16 billion back, right? And we said that money will go straight into Solana. I think some people feel like they've missed Solana now, and they're thinking of the next trade. And that's why I keep on seeing that's why the Sui trade happened to a large extent. It's not like Sui's got the same level of adoption as Solana, or even close to it right now, right? But people feel like they're missing these trades. There's been another trade since Token 2049, which is Tau, which is BitTensor, which is, again, a bit of a narrative more than like anything substantive going on there. But like AI, so a lot of people are buying back into those sort of coins. So I think what we could see here is money come back into the system and chasing some of these narratives a bit more. I really like Solana over the next like 3-4 years, but I would be unsurprised if it's not the leader for the next until like year end.
You mentioned something very critical there, Mando, as well, that people need to understand. When you look at the relative market caps of assets, so you've got Ethereum is 4 times Solana, and coincidentally, can't make this up, Solana is 4 times Sui. The question is, does Sui do 25% of what Solana does? And does Solana do 25% of what ETH does? The answer is no. Solana does an awful lot more than ETH does, first of all. And it does an awful lot more, like 20 times more than what Sui does. So what I'm trying to do is come up with a relative valuation and look at growth trajectories to understand where things are going. But we're going to talk about 2 more things real fast. And in the background, CTO, could you pull a Bitcoin dominance chart and tell me if it's about to break down, by the way? But I want to share this courtesy. Inspiration comes from our friend, Marty Party. Marty, can you explain what this means? Dead chains rolling into Gen 3 chains. I didn't understand that. Sorry.
Yeah, I think first of all, people are I think we do have some clarity on TPS. TPS is not just some fictional number. Basically, it means how many transactions is the blockchain servicing right now. Okay, those are user transactions, bot-based transactions, whatever. It's a brilliant sign of adoption, not necessarily only speed, but adoption. We see here Cardano and Polkadot aren't even doing 1 transaction per second. Okay, so they are not being used. It's not personal, it's math. Okay, now what I'm seeing, I analyze this stuff every day. I try to find where is the money flow. I'm a money flow guy. We all have to understand that crypto is a closed loop. So, liquidity comes in and then it shuffles around. People are moving allocations between one thing and trying to catch the next move. And what I analyzed is that where did the money that went into Sui come from? It's a couple $2 billion. And it looks like it came out of these 2 projects.
But the market caps haven't actually fallen that much. If you look at the market cap of Cardano versus Tron, they're pretty much the same. Polkadot's also pretty high. And another stat here, if you look at what's crazy to me, I've never understood, because I track about 60 different metrics across all chains, and the amount of development on Polkadot is insane. The amount of developers is insane. But what are they doing? And
I've always wondered that. I've never really understood what is going on there. Like, it always comes really, really high for developers. And then, interestingly, Tau, the name I mentioned before, Potenza, that was originally, I think, a Polkadot parachain. Is that what they call it? So I think some of the projects use the Polkadot grant to build out their ecosystem, and then they basically create their own L1 or move to another chain. So maybe that's it. Maybe just the grant program's amazing on Polkadot, and everyone just uses it to build out the tech, and then they just jump ship once the grant goes.
Awesome.
Yeah, from a technology perspective, ICP has had better technology than Polkadot for years. But why, from a trading perspective, their price has never risen. So once again, like CTO said, you can have the greatest technology, but if you don't get adoption, which is literally the hardest thing, which is business partnerships, radical, new products and innovation and real usable products, you're not going to win. So
customers eating the dog
really delivered nothing. Polkadot's delivered zero.
There's one final story. Base went down in secret. I kicked this around to you guys this morning. Mert notified the world, and then you dug into it, Marty and Mando. And I'm sure you're aware of this too. This is kind of stunning because nobody expected layer 2 to go down again, especially not Coinbase one, which is the #1 utilized layer 2 on Ethereum right now. Remember, don't buy the fake base. Everybody doesn't exist. Talk to this. Anybody can take this, and then we'll look at Bitcoin dominance and wrap up.
Yeah, personally, I looked into it. I looked at Base's dashboard, and for at least 20 minutes there were 0 blocks. That's not degraded, that's down. So, but Coinbase announced it as degraded performance, which is a lie. So I worry about their transparency as well. They should be honest, say our chain was down and we're working on it. That's fine. But at the end of the day, if this was Solana going down for 20 minutes, it would have been on the front page of CNN. So I'm not sure why there is such a aversion to the truth in other chains, but Solana has always been, and Sui actually, been very transparent. If something happens, even if it's negative, they will report exactly what happened. They don't try and sugarcoat it. I just found this entire downage on the 21st to be sugar-coated, and I don't like that. That's, once again, goes against the ethos of the entire Web3 ecosystem. Be transparent. Let us know what happened. Let us know you're fixing it. But don't lie.
And a second red flag that we've seen today from Coinbase. Mando, any thoughts on this one?
I think all the L2s have gone down multiple times now.
Exactly right.
Pretty much every single major L2 has gone down multiple times. It doesn't get reported anywhere near as much as Solana. ETH has never gone down, although it did have to do a hard fork. So I don't know. Like maybe if you really want to defend ETH, you could be like, well, the L1 security layer, like that never goes down. But given so much is happening on these L2s, it's worrying that this thing just goes down as much as it does. And I don't really think it's defensible to say that Solana goes down when you then turn around in the same coin and say, oh yeah, but ETH is somehow better. Like this is a big issue for ETH, that all the L2s they go down often, and they have big issues around their
And also,
security, in my opinion.
Also, Optimism and Arbitrum, at least they have known bugs, which maybe have or have not been repaired. But anyway, that's a separate issue. CTO, any Bitcoin dominance? Is it falling? Could this trigger alt season?
I can show the chart here. So I think it's still a straight line up. We cannot say that this has conclusively turned into alt season, because the way that typically looks is like this. If we look at previous instances where this has like suddenly fallen off an absolute cliff. And we're not seeing that here. There's no need for any technical analysis skills or anything like that. So, I mean, of course, good turn, but we're not seeing any confirmation of it yet. In fact, it broke through this resistance. But of course, a lot of this, the only thing we're looking at here is just the abysmal, devastating performance of ETH versus BTC, because that's a big part of this index. And that chart points in this direction. So, of course, then with Ethereum being such a big part of this index, this chart points in the other direction. So I think that it's necessary, but I think generally it is the correct conclusion. Most of the altcoins, most of the big altcoins have been in downtrend. Solana being one of the exceptions. There's a couple of exceptions, but most of them, 9 out of 10, have been in consistent with this, meaning that Bitcoin dominance is pointing up, the altcoin versus BTC has been pointing down. So I think it's necessary to look into the individual altcoin charts, and many still point down, but there are a few that are like notable exceptions. You guys mentioned Tau before. It has like had complete, very clear turnarounds. We mentioned Sui before, and there's a couple of ones. Zeus was discussed before. So there are quite many of these charts suddenly that have like well-defined bottom patterns, trends that have been down for the whole year are suddenly turning up, and I think definitely worth watching. So while we can't see it, we cannot call it alt season yet when the Bitcoin dominance is so clearly still pointing up like this. But there are definitely gold nuggets again in the ocean, where it has only been like a dark abyss for the longest time, actually. So worth watching.
and when people talk about how bad the market is, I sometimes scratch my head, because we went up way higher, way sooner than ever expected. And of course, there's always the 90-day post-halving, chop solidation, which happened, but we're still, nearly $64,000 Bitcoin. We were 15.5. It's still 4x. It hasn't fallen out of bed. But the point is, just a quick summarize, quick roundtable. I'm going to put you all on the spot. 50 seconds left. We went through a whole bunch of catalysts for Uptober. Who believes Uptober will be spectacular? Mando.
Yeah, I think it will be. I'm actually paying attention to ETH. ETH, for the first time in many, many months, is outperforming the other L1s. And normally you get a bit of an altcoin season on the back of that. That's why a lot of people are mentioning that as well. And that's why you've seen Bitcoin dominance come down a little bit. You've had Aave and DeFi hitting an all-time high, hitting a multi-month high, sorry. I think 2.5 years. You have Tau and AI hitting close to its all-time high. You have a range of these smaller narratives, even deep in. Like, it just feels as though some of these utility coins are coming back. I'd start paying attention to those sort of narratives. I think we're in for a very, very big last 3 months.
Well put. CTO, Uptober, is it on or not?
Absolutely. I think that this looks great right now. Of course, you never know. If new information comes to light, charts change, have to be able to take in the new information. But based on what we know now, I think it looks good.
Okay, Marty, I hope you're going to change the track and say something very bearish.
I mean, I think there's a lot of regulatory headwind we could face here in the US, especially. So let's watch out for that. We've got Gensler testifying this week. We've got all kinds of regulatory events happening, which can be, a little bit of a headwind. But if you look at the charts and if you understand where we are, we're about to have the markup. That's what it's called. There's a markup coming to Bitcoin. That's where it violently turns up with 3 massive impulses, like it did from the bottom, and we go to 100,000. what you want to do as a trader right now is this is a great time to reposition, especially all these charts at the bottom, like you said, forming bottom formations. Be in the winning horses, because we're all going to go up. Let's be clear. Most crypto will go up if it's in the top 25 by market cap and when Bitcoin runs, but you want to be in the one that runs the most. And I think at the end of the day, that we're going to see it. October, November, December are going to be huge. We're going to get on the front pages of every newspaper. Crypto, Bitcoin pumping, we all know how it is. And we're probably going to see, once again, crypto TV commercials, which I think always stimulates the bull run. The second they start promoting crypto good. Go ahead.
Brings in retail right at the very end. The other thing that I calculated, which is very interesting, I calculated 3 ways the actual real value of Bitcoin today in terms of price, taken in 3 different ways of calculating debasement going back 8 years, 3 years, and since January 2020. And the average value of all 3 is $45,000. So if you consider the previous bull market all-time high of 69K and the all-time high of what we had now, but in nominal terms, the Bitcoin price is really only about 45 grand. So we have a long way to go, everybody. This market is not over. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank these wonderful people, Mando, CTO, Marty, everybody. Don't forget to follow them. Mando has a great newsletter on Rec Mando.
Thankful for James for doing this in Singapore while he's on travel and not well. Thank you so much for stepping up.
No problem. What else am I going to be doing at midnight? I could be with the Solana boys in certain clubs.
I don't know if people know. We're in 4 different time zones, the 4 of us, and we still do this.
Yeah, we are. Pretty wild.
Midnight here. Anyway, thank you, Marty, as well. Don't forget to follow Marty on X. He's got all sorts of live trading and stuff. And of course, CTO Larson, his YouTube channel and everything else. Amazing, guys. And thank you to everybody here. Sean Donnelly, T&D Tesla, everybody, mods in the chat. Beardy, I see you out there. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, Mando, Larson,
we shill data and we shill facts. We do not shill anything else. Good night, everybody.
See you guys. Thank you.
See you next week.
Cheers. Bye.